We've just been told that human DNA is actually does have a crystal form. There are 7 altogether, whether it be hexagonal or rhombic, and the DNA of human beings falls into one of these crystal structures. So that is quite a fascinating thing.
This crystal is quite interesting. It's actually, through its life, has had some sort of seismic action and has cracked. And actually the crystal, much like a human will, has actually sort of re-healed itself and regrown itself back together through the crack here, which is, from a geological point of view, absolutely fascinating. And also from a holistic point of view, people are absolutely fascinated that these things, to some degree, are living and actually sort of growing.
So we are crystalline, and not only are we crystalline, the DNA, but it's of a certain crystal group, which is the hexagonal group. Now hexagonal, you get beryl, you get aquamarine and crystals like that. And I'm not suggesting that we're an aquamarine crystal, but it's quite an interesting fact, isn't it, that there's a connection between our DNA and the crystal kingdom. And that's what I'd say to you. Think again.
Fantastic example of what comes out of west frontier province of Pakistan, which nowadays most of us associate, I guess, with war and terror. And in such harsh environments, beautiful things do actually grow.
We believe in crystals, the power of crystals, and it also comes from a scientific base. When a crystal has an electric charge put across it, it will resonate at a set frequency. Your own body has an electrical charge, so by holding the crystal, you can actually help with the frequency.
Some people do believe that gemstones have got a lot of mystery attached to them and can heal complaints. It is possible because certain gems do have particular strange characteristics, such as quartz and tourmaline have electrostatic properties.
What you're seeing here are green quartz crystals. These smaller sort of grey areas here are hematite, and actually here is clay. And the reason he found it is because the clay is orange, and that's because of the iron rusting in it. Again, an incredibly rare specimen.
I've been shown crystals that people own who bought them in one state, and over 7 years they own this particular crystal. Another crystal had grown out of one of its faces. And I've heard this 2 or 3 times. There's anecdotal evidence that they are living things, that they can grow over time, and that although they're formed in the earth in a finite period of time, even when you take them out, sometimes they can carry on growing.
Absolutely amazing, and certainly not something you want to stub your toe on.
And it's an energy that is a life force, but not in the way that we know it. So in other words, it doesn't have a heart, it hasn't got blood running through its veins, but it's a life force, but a different type of life force.
You can actually feel energy coming from the crystal. You can cleanse crystals in many different ways. They can, when they're overloaded, they can actually become dull and lifeless. And by immersing them in salt water, as in sea salt and tepid water, you can refresh them. The moon also helps to refresh crystals, and if they're really, really worn out and dull and lifeless, you can put them in the garden, bury them in the garden for a whole lunar month, 28 days. When you take them out, rinse them off, and you'll find they've got their sparkle back again.
I've never studied that side of it. I've seen lots of stones and crystals, and that people say are healing stones. Years ago, of course, they thought amethyst stopped drunkenness. That's why all the archbishops had amethyst rings, so they could drink and not get drunk. Whether it worked or not, I don't know.
Chrysanthemum stone. If you look closely at the stone, it actually resembles the petals of a chrysanthemum and is said to help dispel ignorance and bigotry.
What you're looking at here is a 200 gram gem grade golden beryl crystal. Within the beryl family you have emerald, and obviously everybody knows emerald. In effect, this is a yellow emerald.
There is a move towards scientific belief that certain gemstones have got certain healing characteristics. But as I say, I keep an open mind, just like I keep an open mind to whether there's ghosts and things like that. But there are certain peculiarities about certain gemstones which I'm sure may one day be proved.
Aquamarine crystals here, which are very popular nowadays, certainly females like the cool sort of blue colour. And you can walk into H. Samuel's, into many jewellers' shops and buy aquamarine rings. People put them on the hand and think, what a beautiful colour stone. This really shows you what the stone you are wearing on your hand is, where it came from, its environment, and, you know, from a pure fascination point of view, I think it's important that people do know what they wear, other than just gold and coloured stones that come, you know, from a jeweller in a pre-packaged form. This here again is a completely natural association. You have so many different crystals. You have kunzite here, you have quartz, you have feldspar crystals. And all this green is tourmaline from Nuristan in Afghanistan, an incredibly hostile environment. This hasn't been prepared, hasn't been touched, hasn't been made to look like that or enhanced to look like that. This is as it comes out of the ground.
And I've been reading for about 15 minutes when a voice in my head shouted at me, I'm too hot. I thought, for heaven's sake, what's that? And I looked up, the only thing that was alight was this crystal. So I went over to it and picked it up, nearly dropped it because it was so hot, and found myself apologising to it. And I thought, good God, what's the matter with you? You know, you're going out of your head. You must be talking to a crystal, you see.
Basically, quartz amplifies.
I thought about this for a while. I thought, well, am I going slightly dotty, you know? I mean, I could hear this. It was so clear in my head. And I found myself apologising and said to this crystal, I didn't really mean to do this to you. And I said, but I thought you were an inanimate object. And the crystal, I felt a sense of disbelief that this thing thought it was inanimate. You know, it was a bit offended. So the sense I got off the crystal was a slight feeling of, you know, sort of offence that I'd actually said it was inanimate. So I thought, oh, right, okay, I am going out of my head. In class, they said, oh, yeah, that's okay, you're just opening up, you know.
And have other people had that experience?
Not quite the same as that. But they said to me, oh, yeah, you're just opening up. And Hazel said to me, oh, that's a teaching crystal. So I thought, oh, right, I have a teaching crystal.
The American Indian wear these a lot to help protect the throat and help with communication.
Amethyst can be a crystal that tends to raise your vibrational rate in a spiritual way. It tends to enhance spiritual growth. Richard tends to rescue crystals, and we tend to put them, energize them under the sun or the moon, or cleanse them with smudging with incense. And after a while, the crystals have become very clear, from being very murky and milky to being totally clear.
They look dull when we buy them sometimes, and then over time they clarify. The physical appearance actually seems to change from one that's cloudy to one that's much clearer and sharper and brighter. This happens so many times that we have to accept it as fact, really, or something that you observe to happen.
I'm David Hacker of Northern Minerals. We deal mainly in English specimens, but these are geological mineralogy specimens, but we also deal with some worldwide. I'll point out one or two English specimens to you. Here we've got some biorites and calcites. Now these were collected in about 1900 from the iron mines in West Cumbria.
In India, the Indians, when they have a stone set, they always have it touching the finger so that anything from the stone goes into the body. and they're in contact with the mineral, and especially sort of certain stones. But they are very keen on that sort of thing, because whenever I've done anything for them, it has to touch the finger.
Can we have a break a minute?
Yeah, of course.
My experience, I know the minerals, they do have energy.
You can see the shape of those. I mean, it's perfect. It's an amazing crystal, and that is a single crystal. It would be growing out of the rock within the mine, but and it's terminated on the top.
I mean, they appear to be inanimate, yes, but we've seen it too many times and heard so much anecdotal evidence from people. It goes back centuries, thousands of years.
But when I started, I was still very cautious, and they used to laugh at me because I was so cautious on the class.
The right person with the right training, they are able to use the right energy for the minerals for the benefit of other people.
Crystals grow.
How can you say a lot of things to stones I don't believe are true, but they hope? But quartz and certain do definitely have different vibrations and possibly do have an effect on people.
The animal kingdom, the mineral kingdom, we are all connected. Don't think that we're separate, because we're not.
But interestingly enough, the reason why the kings ate off silver plates was because silver is antibacterial.
Crystals grow, so it must be some sort of life force.
This is mica or lepidolite. This they use in computers, a component for the computer.
This thing about blood diamonds from non-conflict countries and the Kimberley procedure, meaning that you shouldn't buy diamonds from a conflict country to try and stop them selling the stones for guns and carrying on the wars, is a very good principle, except for one thing. You can buy rubies, sapphires, emeralds, gold, platinum, sell them for guns, that's fine. But you see, De Beers don't sell those, do they? Only diamonds. Okay?
Well, we've forgotten it all.
Ancient civilizations used the mineral kingdom and the plant kingdom far more than we're using them now.
It's not until you dig it up that you see the beauty, which is.
And don't think that minerals are not life forms, because they are, which I've just found out that they are. Very different from us. But we are all interconnected. And I do believe that we need to look after each other, all these kingdoms, and realise that we all exist as an independent unit, interdependent unit with each other. And the fact is, if we don't take care of each other, there may not be a world left for us.
To be honest with you, most day when you're walking across Earth, you don't think about what's beneath you, and this is what's beneath you, and it comes from the most harshest places imaginable to man. Quite interesting to see what comes out in future as man explores the planet.
If you like the irony of the whole thing, you have to dig it up and expose it.